I'm delighted to be joined by Welsh boxing legend Lee Selby. You've got a massive fight coming up in BKB. Now, you're a multi-talented guy because you can do the boxing, you can do the bare knuckle, and you're also big into your horses. Can you tell me a little bit about the origins of that? Because I've seen you on Instagram, you're out on the horse and cart and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I like the horses, but first and foremost, yes, I boxed. I boxed for most of my life. Started training at 8 years of age. Had my first contest at 10. Boxed all the way through then amateur until I was 21, then turned professional. Retired at 35, and now just signed back up to fight again with the BKB. Massive fight ahead of me. My debut June 27th in Cardiff, so nice and local. And then back to the horses. Yeah, so I got into horses maybe. I've always been interested in them, but I got into them probably maybe around 6 years ago. And yeah, I got, it's like a farm here. I got 2 horses, 5 dogs, or 20 chickens, a ferret, and a cat.
Sounds like you've got a fantastic collection there. Now, obviously, you're going into the BKB. Very exciting for you. Tell me a little bit about the opponent, a little breakdown of the fight.
So the opponent I'm hearing is a former K1 world champion. I've seen him do a little bit of like kickboxing type of fighting. He's had one BKB fight, which he won by KO in the last round. So he should be capable, very game, and come to fight.
Absolutely. And if you get through this one successfully, could it potentially unlock a rematch in BKB between you and Josh Warrington?
Possibly. I know he come to the show in Manchester recently. We had a chat first time since we fought. And funny enough, it was the anniversary of our fight. I'm not sure how many years ago, but it was on that day. And I asked him about the bare knuckle, and he seemed interested. I didn't ask him whether he wanted to fight me, but he did seem interested in fighting himself.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic chapter of your story in the
Yeah.
BKB. I think everybody's looking forward to how this unfolds. But going through the years, I wanted to have a quick look through your boxing career. And I think it's best to start off in the amateurs. You and Andrew, obviously, both having great
Yeah.
times there. And I believe there were times where you'd be driving towards shows and you'd be hoping that you'd get lost. And then he'd go out and put in fantastic performances. But can you tell me some of your amateur memories with Andrew? Because you must have some
Yeah,
good stories.
like you mentioned, and we were just so different. At a young age, like 10 years of age, my brother would have been 10, I would have been 11 or 12. We'd be driving to these little boxing events in social clubs around the Welsh Valleys. My brother would be asleep in the back of the car, and I'd be so nervous and hoping we get lost on the way or be late, so I wouldn't have to fight. And then we'd wake my brother up. He'd just get out like nothing's happened, box, beat some boy up, and usually stopping him in before the final bell. And yeah, and I'd get in, I'd win, but I'd be very nervous. But I think the nerves kept me sharp, and they still do now.
Yeah, nerves can play a fantastic part of the channeled right. And throughout your career, you put in some fantastic performances. One in particular that stands out, Stephen Smith. Can you tell me a little bit
Yeah,
about that? Because I believe you went in as an underdog and then you put in a tremendous performance.
that was one of my biggest wins, and I got Stephen Smith that the knockout actually tattooed on my arm. Um, I was a massive underdog, an away fighter fighting him in his hometown. He was reigning British and Commonwealth champion. I went there, expected to get beat. Only me and my team were expecting the outcome, which actually happened in the fight. But that's it, against all the odds. And a lot of my fights have been like that. I've been the away fighter. Even early on as a professional, I was the away fighter maybe 2 or 3 times and upsetting the apple cart. Finally got my breakout fight with Stephen Smith for the British and Commonwealth titles. Done the same again, upset the odds and become champion.
Yeah, it's amazing that you pulled off that victory over Stephen Smith. And then a year later, I believe you were in and around the Floyd Mayweather camp while he was preparing to fight Miguel Cotto. Can you tell me about that experience?
Oh, that was amazing. So my manager, my career long manager, Chris Saniga, he was great friends with Cornelius Bowser Edwards, who was former world champion, WBC champion, and he run the Mayweather gym. So that's how we got the connection there. We got to be around Floyd watching him train. And it's funny that the first time we went to Las Vegas, we landed at the airport, went to the hotel, and then Roger Mayweather and Cornelius Bowser Edwards picked us up, and it was like a surreal moment. Like we got those guys like a former world, well, both champions, and one obviously Floyd Mayweather's uncle and coach, just picking us up and just talking like it's nothing. Great experience.
Yeah, I can imagine that must have been amazing. And then you win the world title. And I believe after that, you did some training at the Royal Marines base, didn't you? Can you tell me about that? That must have been wild.
I did, yes. So it was funny because I was in great shape. I was obviously world champion at the time, and the Royals Marine Base they were sort of like training the guys. It was like sort of like their training day, the induction day, and they have to run like all sorts of assault courses through rivers on your hands and knees. And it's funny because I overtook the instructor, the guy instructor. I had to slow down and wait for him to show us where we had to go. I was that fit.
I mean, that is amazing for you. And then obviously going international, beating Fernando Montiel in
Yeah,
Arizona. So he had like the crowd on his side. What was that
yeah.
like? Because he was a legend.
So after becoming world champion, then I signed with Al Heyman, who actually looked after Floyd Mayweather, all the top fighters at the time. He was the biggest at the time, and I boxed Fernando Montiel my first defense. I didn't really I didn't really know much about Fernando Montiel until I did my research. So obviously, my dad's a boxing fanatic; he knew all about him. But I did my research, and I thought, what's going on here? This is my first defense. I'm fighting a freeweight world champion. He'd knocked out more people, twice as many people as I've had fights, and I'm going to fight him anyway. So I guess to the venue. We're in Arizona, and I'm the home fighter, Mike. Because I've just signed with Al Heyman. Well, apparently the home fighter. I walk out and the whole crowd's booing me, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? So I boxed. They raised my hand. They're booing. Oh, sorry. The whole crowd booed me on the way. Excuse me, booed me on the way in. Fernando Montiel had like a standing ovation, and yeah, I boxed. I won. They raised my hand. The whole crowd booed. I thought, what's going on? Did I not win the fight? Did I get ripped? Did I rob him or something? And went backstage, got changed, walked into the arena again with my team with the tracksuits on, Selby tracksuits. They all booed me again. I thought, what's going on? And then it was only until later I didn't realize how close Phoenix, Arizona was to Mexico, and obviously he's a Mexican legend, and that's what it was. It was like I was the away fighter again.
I mean, obviously, you've had some great memories in America. We've touched on Vegas, we've touched on Arizona. I believe you also went to train at the Wildcard Gym in LA, didn't you?
Yeah, so I spent most of my training camps for the bigger fights in Los Angeles. So we first went to Mayweather's gym in Las Vegas, but we found like that the guys there training were seemed to be a lot bigger. Um, and then we started going to LA, and there was more like Mexican Americans, like smaller guys for me to spar with, and I got some great sparring in. Got friendly with Freddie Roach as well, and I always remember he had a fighter, and it picked me up massively. So he had a fighter, and we was asking for sparring, and he said, "Yeah, I got a guy there, but you can't kill him. You're too good." That's what he said, and it just picked me up and made me feel amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine that would have made you feel
Mm.
amazing. And we've touched on some of your big wins. Another one I wanted to mention, Ricky Burns, because that was
Yeah,
obviously a clash between Wales and Scotland. Two fantastic fighters, former
yeah.
world champions. Tell me a little bit about that, Lee.
So Ricky Burns was a great fighter, great guy, and again another freeweight world champion like Fernando Montiel. So between them two wins, it's bloody six world title belts, and mine that's seven. And it's funny, back in I think it might have been 2014, Ricky Burns was boxing Terence Crawford, and he got in touch with my management, and they got me over there for sparring to to replicate and emulate Terence Crawford, and we sparred. And to be honest, the sparring was a lot wider than the fight was in my favor. I remember my manager saying in between rounds, "Listen, he's the champion. Stop going so hard." Because like he's in his own gym and his manager and stuff, sir. And funny enough, his manager come over to me during the sparring. He said, "You're going to be a world champion." This was when I was European champion, like maybe a year or two before I actually won the world title. And he was the first guy to actually pay me for sparring. Well, I say that, the first and only guy to ever pay me for sparring. So he gave me a wage, put me in a hotel, and I felt like a professional fighter. He treated us well, and he always took us out for food, took us out for Nando's. I always remember that. And I remember sort of like being in awe of him, being a world champion. Like we'd walking around Scotland, like when we were going out for food, and I saying, "Oh, do everyone recognise you? Does everyone?" And I was like, just not like starstruck, but like sort of yeah, in awe because I'd seen him on the TV and he's actually a world champion. What I was dreaming and hoping to be. And anyway, the time passes, and then next thing we know, we're offered him as an opponent for a fight for a match room. Again, I was the away fighter this time because I was with Al Heyman, or I'd been with Al Heyman. And yeah, the fight went. It was a very close fight, and I always remember, which was wrong because he's such a nice guy. I remember putting my hand out to touch gloves. He went out to touch gloves, and I punched him instead of touching gloves, and he didn't like that. I shouldn't have done it really because he's such a nice guy, but. is boxing.
It is boxing, and it's amazing that that prediction was made about you becoming world champion because it
Yeah,
turned out to be true. You win the IBF belt. Now, hopefully, you're right on the path to winning a BKB title as well. It's been an
hopefully.
absolute pleasure talking to you, Lee. But before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to mention about fighting in BKB and potentially becoming a world champion there too?
I'm just very excited to be fighting in the BKB. I'm fighting close to home. I got a tough opponent for my first fight, but it's one I'm expecting to win. And I want to be the first professional boxing world champion to actually win a world title with the gloves on and win a world title with the gloves off.